Yes. So the question that we started the mimer with last week was, we call Rosh Hashanah the beginning, the day of creation. Ze ayom tchilas maaseh. This is the day that you began creating the world, right? And we started asking a few questions, right? We know, right, that the world actually was started. Hashem started creating the world on Chaf Hey Elul, okay, 6 days before, or 5 days before the actual Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the first day of Tishrei, right? And 5 days before, right? This was the first day of Tishrei was the sixth day. So on the 25th of Elul, that's when God created the world. That's the first day of the 7 days of creation. What happened on Rosh Hashanah was not the beginning of creation, but rather when Hashem created Adam, the human being. Okay, so we started asking a few questions like, why are we celebrating this day as opposed to the beginning of creation, right? Seemingly would make sense to celebrate day number 1. Why are we not celebrating that day? Instead, we're celebrating day number 6. Okay, so that was our basic question that we were trying to ask. We started that last week. And in order to answer this question, we actually first started building up the question, right? We started explaining, what is the advantage of the first day? Besides for it being just day number 1, besides for it being just day number 1, right? What is the advantage of the first day? And we start expanding on, how great the first day was. We said that really, right? If you look in the Midrash, you look in Rashi, he explains that throughout the 7 days of creation, most things were not new. Hashem didn't create the heaven, the light and darkness. Hashem didn't create animals. Hashem didn't create the birds and the fish. All those were created by Hashem in the first day, right? But they kind of they weren't actualized, if you will. The concept of those things, the creation, their initial creation was done in the first day, and then they became actual physical entities on each subsequent day, right? And we went a little bit into that, and it's a little complicated, but I don't want to go too much into that because I'm just doing a summary right now. But the idea is that everything was really actually created on the first day, okay, which makes the first day very, very special, very, very unique, okay? Right, the first day was a day of oneness, right? Where the only thing that was revealed was God, right? There's a day that was very, very elevated. Furthermore, we explained that the whole of creation, especially in the first day, right? The world was not just a regular world; it was a world of Gan Eden. It was a paradise world. It was a perfect world where God was much more revealed than it is now. Right? And after emphasizing the greatness of the world, the greatness of the first day, the creation as it was pre-human beings, right? Then we say, and then on the 6th day, Hashem created the human, Adam. And Adam and Chava were there, and they were assigned a mission, right? And that mission was not just for these 2 individuals, Adam and Chava, but it was a mission for humanity as a whole, and particularly for the Jewish people. And that is, they were placed in the Garden of Eden, in the world, right, to Avda L'Shamra, to work on it and to fix it and to elevate it. And the question is, you have this perfect world, this world of, holiness, the world that was just, godliness in many ways. It was Gan Eden, right? What do you need a human being there? What is it? What are they working for? What are they accomplishing? Avda L'Shamra, what are they working in the Gan Eden? What is their mission, right? And we explained, and this is really the answer to our question, which we're going to expand on a little bit. We explained that even though God created a perfect world, right? It was a world of sort of creation, a world of nature, a limited world, okay? A world where, things are, they exist in their own limited ways. And even in their most perfect state, they're still limited, okay? They're still not godly. Okay, and Adam and Chava's mission, and from then on, all the humanity and specifically the Jewish people, is to bring God as He is in His essence, bring Him into this world, right? Bring Him as He is recognized, in a way that He could be experienced, that you could see God in the world through these people, through human actions. Bring them into the world. So we're taking two extremes. We're taking the physical, limited concealing world, and we're taking this, the essence of God as he is in his true being, right? Which is not limited in any way. And we're putting somehow those two together. And we're making so that the physical is going to suddenly allow you, right, to experience the divine, allow you to experience God as he is, transcending anything in the world or anything in the spiritual realms, right? And that's what the human being is coming to do. Okay, God created a world that even in its most initial state was perfect but limited, physical, right? And then he said, well, the whole purpose of that is so that Adam is going to come and he's going to, bring God into that, right? And that was the whole reason for it. And so the actual logic behind creation was not just creation, was only for the purpose of Adam and what he was going to accomplish. Him and his descendants. Okay, and he does that in order, to reveal godliness in the world. Okay, so I was thinking like an example of this. Why do we celebrate then Rosh Hashanah, right? Why are we not celebrating the day that God began creating the world, day number 1, but rather day number 6 when the human was created? And I was kind of coming up, the metaphor, the example that I thought in my mind is, imagine you're getting married, right? You're getting married. It's a big joy. It's a simcha, and you're planning a party, right? And you have to book the hall, and you have to send the invitations, and you have to get the dress, and you have to get the this, and all the different things that you have to do in order to finally get to that wedding, right? And get married, right? You don't celebrate the day that you book the wedding hall. You don't look back and say, you see, this is our happy wedding hall anniversary. You don't do that. That's not what you're looking back on, because the purpose of the wedding hall is useless, right? Other than for the fact that it will allow for its ultimate purpose, which is the wedding, right? If the wedding wouldn't happen, the wedding hall is inconsequential, right? And so is the dress, and so is the invitations, and so is the catering, and so is all the stuff, right? So that's what we don't celebrate. These things are not important because they're only there to allow for something that's really important to happen. Its purpose, and that is the wedding. So you celebrate the wedding, you look back and you remember your wedding anniversary, right? And you don't think about all the preparations, all the things that just were there only to lead up to that anniversary, to that event. So in many ways, this is the same, right? If you think, and this tells us a lot about the creation of the world, if you think about it. If you think, if we were to celebrate God created the world, then that means that the creation of the world is something that, it's important in and of itself. It's a goal in and of itself. But we don't do that. And what that tells us is the creation of the world on its own didn't need to happen. It's not a goal in and of itself. It's not valuable in and of itself. Before the world existed, it was just God. So what was the need of the world? What is this adding to God? Now there's this universe, and there's this, big ball floating in the middle of nothingness, and, spinning around in space. And, what's the purpose of all of this? What does it add to what was there before? It's just God. Did God need all of this? And the answer is no. So why did all this happen? It all happened so that there can then be a human being, a Jewish person that learns Torah and does mitzvahs and brings God into that world. And that's like the wedding. That event is something that's important. That event is something that God was looking for, right? Everything else, right? The entire creation of the cosmos, of the world, of everything is only there as a setup for the real important stuff to happen. And that is, right, what Adam comes to do in this world, to bring the revelation of God into that. And that's what we celebrate. We don't celebrate the creation of the world. We celebrate the creation of Adam. Okay? So now we're going to deal with we're going to look into this idea a little bit more. Adam brings God into the world. So the question is like this. How? How does Adam have the ability to do this? Right? Where does it come from? Right? That all of a sudden, you have a creative being. We kind of take it for granted. We've learned it a little bit here and there, but think about it. You're a creative being. You're a limited person with problems, with, good and bad inside of you, with issues, you know, you have trauma, whatever it is. Who are you to then be able to do a couple things here and there, open up, you know, you light a couple of candles before on Friday, you wrap some stuff around your arm, you know, you eat some matzah on paste, and all of a sudden you are now somehow, right, drawing down the essence of God that an angel in its wildest dreams could not even consider or get close to, right? It's like, it's completely baffling. There's millions and infinite, there's literally like an infinite number of worlds in between, you know, all the spiritual realms. And we completely bypass all of that. The highest level is nothing compared to the essence of God. And we are somehow right here, right? Some little, you know, schnook in New Jersey, right? Does a little thing and eats a cracker on the right day. And then all of a sudden, you know, this ridiculous amount of like, you know, connection with this, the deepest part of anything, with God himself, is drawn and revealed in this world. How? And the answer is very interesting. The answer goes back to what a Jew is. The reason why we're able to do that is because it's nothing foreign to us. You see, all these infinite levels of spirituality, right? Each one has their own degree. It's like a spectrum, right? You have more revelation the higher up you go, less revelation the lower you go. And it's kind of like, you know, it's a spectrum. There's a logic to it. But on top of all of that is the essence of God, which defies the whole spectrum. It was there before, you know, all these levels were created. It's going to be there after, and it hasn't changed since. And the reason why we are able to tap into that and bring it down here is because that's where we come from. You see, all these levels got created, even the highest levels where God is revealed in so many different ways and it's so high and lofty. God had to go and create that as a separate, in a way, as a separate thing, a very high level. But God had to create that. But the Jewish person, God didn't create in a way. We stemmed from his essence. So because we come from his essence, that's where we come from. We're able to draw back down from that because that's nothing foreign. And you know, in our essence, it's his essence. It's the same thing. That's how powerful, right? That's how deep the Jewish people go. Right? And that's the reason why Adam, as opposed to any other being in creation, think about it. Every being in creation was created. How was that being created? Hashem said, let there be light, and there was light. Let there be animals, there was animals. Hashem used his words, right? With the human, it was a completely different process for some reason, right? What happened? Hashem took a piece of earth, dirt, shaped it up like a little person, and then what did he do? He didn't say, let this person be alive. He didn't say, let there be people. What did he do? He took this little dummy and he blew into it a spirit of life. And you see the distinction, right? When you speak, it's something external, right? It's something that you can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. You know, it takes a long time, so many words for you to, you know, to have to like take a breath. When a person blows, you blow from your core, it's coming from very, very deep inside of you, right? And that's the idea. God was blowing a soul into it. He's blowing a little bit of himself. He's taking from his essence and blowing it into this little dummy. And we're going to get into why. Why did he need to create the dummy? But that's what he's doing. Okay? So what that means is that every other entity was created from a somewhat external aspect of God. God as a creator, God as a maker, right? Through God's words, right? We were created in a very different way. We came straight from the essence. So when we come to this world, even if the world would be perfect, we have so much to add to it, and that's the purpose of creation. Now we can reach back to that essence of God and reveal it in this world and show how this world doesn't conceal God, but rather reveals God in his essence. Okay? So one of the things that we see here from here, it's also really, really interesting. That's why we're called, Banim. We're the kids, Hashem's kids, right? You see something interesting with parents and a kid. So it's an interesting question if you think about it, right? You have, a person, right? Say you have a person, and that person has certain, things that he's good at, he's bad at, and this person can have a kid, right? Which is coming from these two people, right? These two people have a kid, and this kid could have more in terms of his skills, his abilities, than what the parents have. I'll give you an example, right? Forget genetics right now, what we know of genetics. Just understand the concept as it is. Let's say you have two blind parents, right? You can have two blind parents, two parents that don't have the ability to see, and they can have a kid that sees perfectly well, right? So too, you can have people that have certain, emotional character traits, right? Or have souls that are, not necessarily super elevated, and they can have a kid that's super elevated. Where's that coming from? If you think about it, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, right? Spiritually speaking, you're thinking like, whatever this kid is getting, he's getting from the parents. There's no other route for him to be getting anything. So how can he get something more than what the parents have? And the answer to that in spiritual terms, again, let's not talk. We're not talking genetics here. The answer to that in spiritual terms is the fact that the kid is created from the parents' essence, and the parents' essence, both parents are perfect. That essence can reveal itself later, right, in different ways, and in those ways in which the essence reveals itself is not perfect, right? So you can have a parent who has flaws, who doesn't have certain abilities, right? But in the essence, he has everything, right? That's the father and the mother both the same, right? So whatever is revealed in a person, whatever flaws a person might have, what that person, the part of the person that the kid is coming from, is from the essence where everything is perfect, and therefore the kid draws directly from that, and he's able to create, to be something more. The revealed part of this person, right? The personality of this person is his energy, his powers, his abilities, right? Could be more than what the parents were, because in the end, they're both drawing from 100% from the essence. And in a way, that's exactly what happens with God and with us, right? God reveals himself in many different ways, right? He reveals himself as a creator. He reveals himself as part of creation. He reveals himself as something that is, completely removed from creation, right? These are all ways in which God chooses to interact with creation, spiritual and physical, right? He can be in creation. Everything all the energy that goes into creation to create all the natural world that we see comes from God. That's God, creating, making something, interacting with it, right? And you can have God the way that he chooses to be completely removed from creation, in a way that, he decides that he's not going to be immersed in creation. Okay? 1 second, sorry. So yes, so there's the way that God chooses to reveal himself in a way that he's not interacting with creation. He's completely removed. But that's also a way to reveal himself, to put himself out there, right? His choice to interact or not to interact with the world is a way of him expressing himself. But that's not his essence, right? His essence is higher than both of those things, right? And that's where the Jewish people comes from. That because we're like his kid, because we draw down from that essence. Okay. Now that we established, okay, and I know that we're dealing with a lot of very deep ideas, but now that we've established the concept, right, that the Jewish people are able to draw from God's essence because we come from that same essence, right? So how do we bring that into the world? Okay, so there's two things that we need to understand. The first thing is that in order to bring that essence into the world, the way that we do that is by bringing it, by elevating, by interacting with our own body. Our own body, right, is a reflection of the world, right? And it will affect the world. That's why God specifically, again, going back to the creation of Adam, he didn't just, blow his, the spirit and create a person. And he didn't use his words. He specifically took physical dirt, the most physical and lowly part of the world, which mud, dirt, right? And he took the highest of the high, his essence, and he blew the highest into the lowest, and that's how he created a person. So we are actually a very unique combination of extremes. The lowest of the low, the most physical, the most limited piece of mud, right? And the highest of the high, the essence of God coming together, right? So we have body and soul that represent everything, all the gamut of existence, from the most base and physical to the highest and even transcending spirituality. We have all of it. So by us refining our body, by us, going ahead and doing mitzvahs and learning Torah, okay? By learning Torah, which talks specifically to the soul, and by doing mitzvahs, which apply to the body, right? You eat a piece of matzah, it's going in your mouth and your stomach, through your tract. It's going up. You put a tefillin, you're wrapping in your physical arm. It's not a soul thing, right? Even though it obviously affects your soul, but you're doing it in your body. So by doing these mitzvahs and by learning this Torah that talk both to the soul, right, the essence, the spirit, and the physical, the body, right? That's how we kind of bring, keep being that medium to connect and combine and reveal, right, that essence in the physical. Because every mitzvah that we do, every time we learn Torah, that's what we're doing. We're bridging that gap. We're bringing them together. We're doing an action that encompasses in it both a physical being with a physical existence and physical limitations, right? Every mitzvah has very limited things, right? A sukkah needs to be this height and this big and this, its tefillin need to be square, need to be black, need to be this, need to be. It has very limited limitations, physical, but at the same time is the will of God. And it allows us to, by doing them, right, combine these things in the physical world, and by doing so, elevating our bodies and elevating the physical world. So that is a bit about, what the world is about. And to connect it back to Rosh Hashanah, right, is again, as we said, that the purpose of all humanity, the purpose of the entire world, is because of us, of our ability to bring God into the world and reveal him in the world. And because we have that ability, and that was the ultimate purpose of creation, and everything else you see around you, as we said, it's just the stage. It's just setting the stage for us to do those mitzvahs and to bring God into the world, right? So the day that we celebrate on Rosh Hashanah is that day. So I guess if one meditation that could come out of this for Rosh Hashanah is to just think about it. Think about on Rosh Hashanah what we're celebrating. We're celebrating that we are the purpose of all creation, which is big, something to be proud of. It's a big honor. It's also a huge responsibility, right? Like Spider-Man, right? Big power comes great responsibility. So that's what we're doing, right? It's a big responsibility. You got to think about that on Rosh Hashanah, right? It's our responsibility. Everything in the world was created for us. The whole creation of the world is only secondary to what we can accomplish. So we need to accomplish it. What are we doing to make sure that we accomplish that? How much are we doing to make sure that we don't become like every other creation and instead, live up to what we were created for, so that the world could have a purpose? So that's something to think about on Rosh Hashanah, because that's what we're celebrating. So anyway, that's a little thought on Rosh Hashanah. I think we have another class before Rosh Hashanah anyway. We can discuss a little bit more maybe about the shofar, but I think we're done with this mimer for now. Anyway, thank you guys for coming. Do you guys have any questions?
So how do non-Jews fit into this mission? Because Adam wasn't really Jewish, but he was the first man, right? So there would really be no effect to set. So what if he made Adam Jewish, then the rest of the world would be Jewish too, because he was because the mission was given to a non-Jew, right? But it's only later in history that Hashem decided to make the Toradic covenant with the Jewish people specifically. But this mission that we're talking about precedes precedes creation, right? This mission was part of Hashem's plan all along, right? So now that there are Jews and Gentiles, like how did Gentiles fit into this mission here?
Okay, so I'll answer the best I can. So there's two things to that question. Okay, so the first question is what is the Gentiles' mission as it pertains to this, and the other question is about this question of Adam being Jewish. So the Gemara does tell us that Adam was Jewish. Adam and Chava were both Jewish. Now, what does that mean? Because then you say if they were Jewish, their kids were Jewish, and everybody's Jewish. Well, no, not exactly. So the way that it works is like this. Okay, first of all, what is a Jew? A Jew is a person that has a godly soul. It's a certain type of soul that was put into this world, and that is what Jews are right? Jews and non-Jews both have missions in the world. They're different, right? That's why Jewish people have mitzvahs and non-Jews have their own separate mitzvahs. There's 7 mitzvahs, right? But in terms of what a Jew is a certain type of soul. Adam had that soul. Now, the way that it worked prior to Avram, right, was that soul was not inherited. I mean, that soul could be, a person could have multiple kids, and maybe one of those kids could have that type of soul, that ability to connect in a certain way, right? And usually you would see that, when you read through Bereshit, you see that, the Torah tells you, this person that Adam had these number of kids, and this that had this number of kids, but it only tells you kind of like about 1 or 2 of their kids, and which were the ones that kind of like carried the torch, so to speak. But it wasn't something that was, by virtue of me having it and having a kid, or well, truly, my wife having a kid, right? My kid would be Jewish. That did not exist up until Avraham, right? When Hashem meets Avraham and kind of like, does this pact, and he says, from now on, your descendants you're going to be the Jewish nation. So from now on, your kids, they're Jewish. So this is a crazy thing, something that is, very special, that shouldn't really be handed down just, oh, I was born and now I'm Jewish, I don't have it. Why? I don't know. Because so by virtue of Avram, now all of a sudden that became an inheritable trait. And now we just have it just because we come from him. Right? And that started happening after Abraham. But before that, there was this idea of a Jewish, like a godly soul, which Adam did most definitely have. It was just not, the dynamics didn't work the same way. So that answers one part. The other part is, what is the non-Jews mission in the world, right? How do they fit into all this, right? So my understanding, and I'm sure there could be others, and it's not something that I've delved into very deeply, but my understanding is that while the Jewish people have a mission to bring God and reveal him in the world, be a light to the nations, right? That's what it says in the Torah. The Jewish people are supposed to be a light to the nations, to guide, the nations in a way of morality and ethics and, godliness, right? It's the non-Jewish mission to develop the world, right? The physical world needs to be developed, needs to continue to grow. It needs to, they have to live with morality. That's one of their 7 mitzvahs, right? They need to have, batei dinim. They need to have like courts. They need to make sure that they live, in justice, with justice. I mean, so their purpose is to develop the world, to allow the world to reach its potential on its own, right? But then it's the Jewish mission, right, to be kind of bringing in the light of godliness into that world that's being developed. That's my understanding of it. I'm sure there might be other approaches, but that's how I understand it. So I don't know. Hope that answers the question.
Yes, that's very deep. I didn't know that about the descent thing, because I assumed, because we call Avraham Avinu the first Jew, right? So that would kind of, one would presume that the rest of our forefathers pre Avraham Avinu were not Jewish,
right?
But it makes a lot of sense, because Avraham had other kids, but we only really hear about Yitzhak. And then same with Yitzhak, right? We know Esav went off the derech, and then Yaakov was really the first of the patriarchs who had just all righteous kids, because they all carried on the covenant, and they went into Israel and everything. So makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming, and I guess we'll see you next week. Mitzvah Hashem.
Hey, Rabbi, real quick.
Yeah, we got 3 minutes
With-
before the call gets it's over.
With Rabbi Silverberg in the Tanya class, he addressed that question and he gave an explanation, but the simpleness of it was that he called mankind to be good in this world, to do good in this world, but the Jews he called to be godly. So we are to bring godliness into the world, and that's the difference between us.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah, Shkoyach.
Okay.
Thanks, Rabbi. Blessings. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. See you next week.
Shalom, shalom, shana tova.